As expected, Fox News' joint interview with our two co-presidents, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, hosted by Sean Hannity, was a total disaster, replete with lies, authoritarian impulses, and painful awkwardness from Musk in particular, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video. I'm not going to rehash the clips I played in previous videos, the preview clips. We're getting into the full Monty here, and there's so much to talk about that I actually had to reduce the number of things we're going to examine. But we're going to start with this here and unpack it together.
You're committed to getting to Mars. You're committed to rescue. You're going to help rescue next month 2 astronauts that I think were abandoned. They dispute that in an interview.
At the president's request or instruction, we are accelerating the return of the astronauts, which was postponed kind of to a ridiculous degree.
They got left in space.
They've been there. They were supposed to be there 8 days. They're there almost 300.
Biden.
They were yes, they were left up there for political reasons, which is not good.
Okay, it's not good.
So the astronauts themselves say otherwise. I would imagine they would know. Again, this has been fact-checked to hell and back. But actually, the plan to get the astronauts back began under the Biden administration, long before Elon Musk was involved. And again, the astronauts themselves dispute this, and 2 of them were scheduled to be returned before Trump even said that he turned to Musk and asked him to get the astronauts down. So again, just a blatant lie, one of many, many, many from Elon Musk, but he never lets the facts get in the way of a good story. Here's another clip.
Idaho's level is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there was I had some invitation because I got invited to basically a big sort of damn event that was, but I received the invitation the beginning of last year, and I still attended even after I'd endorsed President Trump, and I didn't realize how profoundly that would affect how I was received. I mean, I walk into the room and I'm getting just the dirty looks from everyone. If looks could kill, I would have been dead several times over.
But that was not before Trump.
Ashes on the floor.
Before Trump, that never happened, right?
Yeah, so again, just note a couple of things. Elon Musk's awkwardness, his ability to have a natural conversation, Trump's painful forced smile as he stares dead ahead and hopes Musk shuts up. Musk doesn't take the cue to shut up and keeps interrupting even as Sean Hannity tries to guide the conversation. But again, even on the substance, well, you endorsed Donald Trump, who had terrible policies in his first term, has threatened to go after Democrats and members of the media. He tried to overturn a free and fair election. He ran on an openly authoritarian campaign. So yeah, it makes sense that if you subsequently go to a party hosted, he says a Dem party, so hosted by Trump's opposition party, it would make sense that you would be poorly received, especially when you contributed somewhere between $250 and $300 million in basically a matter of 3 or 4 months to get Trump elected, lending the full power of your social media platform as well. Yeah, it makes sense that you would not be received with the warmest of welcomes. And if we take your story at face value, the fact that that surprises you suggests you're really, really dumb, right? So again, awkward, stupid, dishonest, unprincipled, Elon Musk in a nutshell. Here's another clip.
And you stop, in a way. You're still doing it. And you partner with him. And this is what you get from the Democrats. You get, nobody voted for Elon. Well, nobody voted for any of your cabinet nominees. Okay. People are dying because of Doge cuts. I'll give you a chance to respond to all that. What Doge is doing is illegal. Elon Musk is more street vernacular for a male body part. It's a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, so a couple of things. The cabinet, those positions are created by federal statute and implied by the Constitution because the president has advisors in the Constitution. So number 1, number 2. Number 3, they are also Senate confirmed. So you have other elected representatives vetting and confirming, giving their approval to these powerful positions. So that's another check, even though I would argue that Republicans have all but abdicated that responsibility. At least that's a procedural check. And no cabinet secretary has the level of influence over Donald Trump that Elon Musk does. So again, it's a false equivalence every which way. The other points about, people dying as a consequence of Doge's cuts, that's been verified to be true, number 1. And number 2, this idea that it's a constitutional crisis and what they're engaging in is illegal. so far, there's ample evidence to indicate that that's the case. The Supreme Court will have the final say on that. It's a right-wing Supreme Court with a supermajority that's pretty sympathetic to Trump, so they may end up finding ultimately otherwise, but Donald Trump and Musk have violated judges' temporary restraining orders. We've seen that. We covered it in previous videos. So actually, there's a lot of substance to those criticisms. So, and also Musk being a dick, verifiably true. Here's another clip.
Okay. Why are they reacting like this?
Well, first of all, do you give it flying rip? Oh, number one, and
well, I guess we must be over the target or doing something right. You know, if like they wouldn't be complaining so much if we weren't doing something useful, I think.
It's pretty shitty logic. Why would that be the case? Why would people complain if you were doing something that's really popular and really beneficial? That doesn't make any sense at all. It could be, perhaps a simpler, more rational explanation is people are complaining because you are wildly incompetent and you're constantly face planting in front of the media and the public with respect to your cuts, your conspiracy theories, your lies. Maybe that's why people are complaining. But we'll continue.
What all we're really trying to do here is restore the will of the people through the president. And what we're finding is that there's an unelected bureaucracy. Speaking of unelected, there's a vast federal bureaucracy that is implacably opposed to the president and the cabinet. And you look at, say, DC voting, it's 92% Kamala. Okay, so we're 92% Kamala. That's a lot.
they don't like me here either.
I think about that number a lot. I'm
Yeah.
like 92%. That's basically almost everyone.
Yeah.
And so, but how can you, if the will of the president is not implemented, and the president is representative of the people, that means the will of the people is not being implemented. And that.
So again, this is, set the awkwardness aside, set the hypocrisy on the unelected bureaucrat thing, because Musk is more powerful and less accountable than any unelected bureaucrat we've ever had. So even if I grant the premise that there are unelected bureaucrats stymieing presidents' agendas, well, you're even greater of a threat in that respect because you have more power, more influence, and less accountability than any of them. And I reject the premise in the first place. But the second implication, this idea that the president is a representative of the people. Trump didn't win a majority of the popular vote. He won a plurality. More people voted against Trump than voted for him. So by that notion, the will of the people by definition is not being implemented. Number one. Number two, what about Democratic presidents? Was this Elon Musk's logic? Was this Trump's logic? Was this MAGA's logic when Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton were president? They actually won popular votes, popular majorities, and had higher approval ratings than Trump does. Trump right now has the highest approval rating of his career, but it's still lower than it was under President Biden during this time in President Biden's administration. Did you all support that? Did you tell Republicans never get out of the way? The president is his will is reflective of the people's will, and therefore he should have his way. His will should be implemented. No, of course not. By the way, what about Congress? Senators and representatives, Democrat and Republican, they were also elected, and they exist in a checks and balances. And by the way, the Congress is supposed to be the most powerful and necessarily predominant branch, and you all are railroading them and working around them to implement Trump's agenda. So none of this makes sense. This sort of constitutional political analysis from Elon Musk is objectively terrible and doesn't withstand scrutiny, which is probably why he's stammering and struggling to articulate it in real time. He may be a brilliant businessman, but his political takes objectively suck, are inferior to most people's, and they should be ruthlessly mocked, as I'm doing now. We'll continue.
That means we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. And so I think what we're seeing here is the thrashing of the bureaucracy as we try to restore democracy and the will of the people.
Again, an ironic sentiment coming from somebody who's sitting beside and has his hand up the ass of an authoritarian who tried to overturn the last election after he lost it freely and fairly. Again, objectively more anti-democratic and undemocratic than any democratic politician, or perhaps all of them put together. We'll continue.
You say the same thing. It's not done yet. And what do you mean by that?
I mean, winning the election is really the opportunity to fix the system. It is not fixing the system itself. So it's an opportunity to fix the system and to restore the power of democracy. And people like it's funny how often when these attacks occur, the thing that they're accusing the administration of is what they are guilty of. They're saying that things are being done unconstitutional, but what they are doing is unconstitutional. They are guilty of the crime of which they accuse us.
That's always
What? What crime? What is unconstitutional?
the first thing they do. He's
Yeah.
in violation of the Constitution. They don't even know what they're talking. Well,
It's
they
absurd.
know. It's
Yeah, but give examples. What have we done? What have your opponents done that you consider to be unconstitutional? What specifically? But again, this is just, it's lazy. It's just lazy. We're unconstitutional. They're unconstitutional. They're the unconstitutional poo-poo heads without any sort of substantive analysis or substantiation of the claims themselves. Again, I digress. We'll continue.
And I just
Sure.
want to mention a couple, but I'm going to scroll it. and-
Well, I guess at a high level, I think it's what the president mentioned earlier, which is that in order to save taxpayer money, it comes down to two things: competence and caring. And when
Competence and caring? Why? Who are you? Have you seen? We've all seen what Doge has done over the past 3 weeks. The fact that they've fired, for example, nuclear personnel that they desperately tried to rehire because they realized, oh shit, these are essential workers. But rather than carefully prune various agencies and departments, they just are wholesale purging people, then regretting it after the fact, scrambling to undo it. They mistakenly gave one of Elon Musk's sidekicks administrative privileges to top sensitive treasury data. Again, not exactly a sign of competence. They have been caught and exposed and fact-checked time and time again. We saved, what about the claims about, $50, $100 million in condoms being sent to Hamas? We see signs of incompetence from Musk's Doge time and time and time again. So I'm not entirely sure that Musk is an authority on what is governmentally competent and what isn't. Here's another clip.
yeah, we inherited.
Yeah.
And inflation is back. I'm only here for 2.5 weeks.
That was January.
Inflation
You were there
is
for a
back.
week.
No, think of it. Inflation's back, and they said, "Oh, Trump inflation." I had nothing to do with it.
You promised to cut inflation on day one repeatedly throughout the campaign. We have the receipts, we have the clips, we have the transcripts from the interviews. You're caught. You've lied to people because it turns out cutting inflation's really, 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 really hard to do. And you lied to people when you suggested you could snap your fingers and get it done. And now he's trying to move the goalposts. Well, I didn't have anything to do with this, Biden. No, the buck stops with you. You're president now, and you and your party's standard when President Biden was in office was that anything bad that happened on Biden's watch was his fault. Anything good that happened was either didn't happen or somebody else's to somebody else's credit. And that's the standard we're going to apply to you. And we're going to smile when we do it. We have every right to do it. I would argue we have a political responsibility to do it. And to conservatives out there who complain about it, then you should publicly apologize for your party's hypocrisy and say, you know what, we were wrong to apply this standard to Biden and the Democrats. We should have been more nuanced and fair. And so we're asking Democrats to be that way for Trump. The fact of the matter is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This is the standard you created. You created your own standard by saying you would cut this stuff on day one. You failed. It's your fault. And the polls reflect that people are pissed off about it. So Democrats should continue to relentlessly hammer this until we gain meaningful political victories over it. Here's another clip, the final one.
Who knows? Because he figures he does think differently. He thinks he has a better product.
Yeah.
And as long as he has a level playing field, he doesn't care what you do, which
Exactly.
is very, he's told me that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't asked the president for anything ever.
And
It's
if
true.
it comes up, how will you handle it?
Well,
He won't be involved.
yeah, I'll recuse myself if it is.
If there's a
conflict.
conflict, he won't be involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want that, and he won't want it.
Right, and also I'm getting a sort of a daily proctology exam here. It's not like I'll be.
So again, we know that Musk-inspired Trump firings and purges at various departments have been almost surgically tied to departments and agencies that have investigated Elon Musk and his various holdings and his various companies. It's a terrible coincidence. And again, they establish, well, he'll recuse himself. So kind of like how Supreme Court justices get to decide when they step away, apparently that's up to Elon Musk. It's at Elon Musk's discretion. He is a benefactor from billions upon billions upon billions of dollars of government subsidies. He benefits materially, directly, financially, and so do his companies, so do his interests, right? He wants to get to Mars. You need the federal government's involvement and buy-in, both in terms of economic buy-in, but also procedural buy-in in terms of the weight and power and resources of the government. He has absolute, unprecedented corrupt incentive to influence and shape the federal government. And he has rivals and peers and competition in these various spaces, and he has every incentive to sideline them using this corrupt influence. It's total bullshit, this idea that we have nothing to worry about, and if we did have something to worry about, you can trust Elon. Elon doesn't want to exploit these conflicts of interest, and he'll recuse himself. Absolutely no evidence whatsoever that that's the case. And by the way, that's just a default presumption that nobody's entitled to, liberal or conservative, Republican or Democrat. That's a really sick, gross presumption. I'm not comfortable with liberal Supreme Court justices leaving it up to themselves on when and where to recuse. I'm not comfortable with Democrats doing it. Why on earth would I be comfortable with this loser doing it as well? Nobody should, if you're principled. Unfortunately, so much of MAGA isn't. But there you have it, a painfully awkward train wreck replete with lies, authoritarian impulses about, really it's just whatever the president, a Republican president wants. That's the will of the people. And also flagrant violations of ethics just demonstrated. I mean, he's lying left, right, and center. He's talking about, I'll recuse myself. I don't benefit from this at all. Total nonsense. And I don't think this has helped the perception that Musk is co-president and that he is influencing the trajectory of Washington, D.C. And the polls indicate people are not happy about it, including Republicans. So I think this has done more harm than good. That's just my opinion. Let me know your opinion in the comments.